Darker Skies is a third-person survival horror game based on War of the Worlds and developed by a small independent studio. So, was their passion enough to overcome their limited budget? Let's find out. I'm Adam Scott, and this is Darker Skies.
It was just over a year ago when they first arrived. We'd have never believed that we were being watched. Less so that they were coming. We put up a fight. But they had machines we couldn't comprehend.
Darker Skies was released in 2021 for current and last-gen consoles, and is the sequel to 2020's Gray Skies, a War of the Worlds story, from developer Steel Art Software. Haven't heard of Steel Art Software? Not surprised. Other than Gray Skies, they only have one other game under their belt, Welcome to Hanwell, which is a narrative, single-player horror game. And for Steel Art's single-player games are their bread and butter. From their site, our goal is to craft great narrative single-player games in a world moving increasingly toward multiplayer and live services. We know there will always be a place for well-crafted single-player experiences. Hopefully, we make a few good ones. They say they're single-player gamers because, quote, we don't have friends. Well, I can relate. So is this one of the small studio's few good games? Let's start with the story. Darker Skies is inspired by H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, where you play as Jack, a survivor of the war, on his mission to collect parts he needs to construct a heat ray, blast his way to freedom, and restore some semblance of civilization. It's certainly an interesting setup. We've seen the War of the Worlds in various movies, and of course in the infamous radio broadcast all the way back in 1938. But the aftermath of the war, that's really unexplored territory with a lot of interesting potential. So I'm sure you're thinking there's a pretty deep narrative pulling from this rich source material. Nope, there's really only some brief voiceover at the opening and the end without any other clear story or cutscenes throughout. Why is Jack building a heat ray? Who in the world is Jack? How does he know what to do? It's probably best going in knowing you won't get answers. And look, there is some fun creating the fiction in your mind, although a bit more world building would help make the mental picture much clearer. In your search for those pesky heat ray components, you'll travel to an old apartment building, a prison, a sports stadium, a theme park, an infested town, and plane wreckage, which was a nice change of pace from the typical schools, hospitals, and asylums found in most survival horror games. These 6 different locations are all connected by a series of underground tunnels that act as your hub. 4 of these areas can be visited in any order, while 2 are locked until later, with no indication of which until you attempt to interact with its fast travel point. You'll carefully sneak around the environment, avoiding the zombie-like enemies, and hunt for crafting components, red weed extract, no, not that type of weed, and ammo as you ultimately find the heat ray components. After getting each component, you'll return to the base where you can upgrade Jack, like gaining new crafting recipes or increasing health at the laptop using the red weed extract you've gathered. I can't quite wrap my head around how bringing this extract to a laptop allows Jack to craft more recipes, and since there's no explanation, we'll just go with it. And then you head back out to another area for the next component. Rinse and repeat. There are some clear inspirations from other horror games, like how Jack's flashlight is affixed to his jacket, similar to Silent Hill, or how his health is displayed on his back, and how you can see the direction you need to go projected on the floor, like in Dead Space. Or the way the enemies run, like in Succubus with Guns. They were definitely inspired by the greats. You can use focus vision to highlight the location of enemies and electrical wires even through walls. This helps you stay undetected and solve various power puzzles. Occasionally, you'll have to solve simple puzzles to progress, like following the wire from a locked door to a button that will unlock it, or finding a code in the environment for a keypad. They're very simple, and will never, ever stump you, but it's still a good way to mix up the gameplay. You'll want to avoid enemies or take them out from a distance. Jack is very weak, and the enemies are strong and super aggressive when they're aware of you, and if multiple enemies catch your scent, forget about it. Crafting plays a large role in allowing you to dispatch the enemies from a distance. You'll collect all manner of different materials like glass, batteries, and chemicals. With the crafting recipes, you can combine your materials to make all sorts of throwable traps, bombs, and distractions. You can throw jars of water at enemies and then follow that up with a shock grenade to reduce all of the enemies to sizzling husks. Or use a smoke bomb to cover your tracks, allowing you to sneak by undetected. or hell, just blast them to bits. The crafting and creativity in dispatching the enemies was surprisingly fun. There are two primary enemies: weak standard zombies that move fast but are fairly easy to take down, and ones that wield melee weapons. They move much slower but can detect you far easier, and are tough as hell, like to a crazy degree. Seriously, how many headshots do you think it takes to kill them? I'll wait. 1, maybe 2? No, try 5 or more. So yeah, you don't want to get up close and personal. Later in the game, you'll encounter alien enemies, which you'll have to avoid since your weapons can't hurt them. There's only a single boss fight, and strangely, it's not even at the end of the game. However, this was an impressive spectacle as you take on the iconic tripod itself. Thankfully, ammo pickups are pretty generous considering the sheer buckets full you'll need to take down the enemies. It's clear your gun wasn't meant to be your primary weapon. Your flashlight goes through batteries like your mom, and they're not as plentiful in the environment, so you'll want to use them sparingly. Unlike your mom. Let's talk about the controls. Right away, things feel very loose, and there aren't any options to change them. However, give it a few minutes and you'll get used to it. Jack can crouch, climb over objects, and run. Nothing feels particularly egregious, but there is a clear level of jank in the animations and overall movement. And I can't figure out what it's for, but clicking the left stick will make Jack do, well, this.
Hey!
No complaints, more games need a psst button. The visuals are serviceable. You'll always have to take this with a grain of salt when it comes to a small studio like this. Jack looks like a wax statue of Gene Simmons from Kiss. There was a decent variety to the environments, and some of the lighting actually looks great. Surprisingly, Darker Skies nails the atmospheric tension with an ominous score and for the most part effective sound design. Games with much bigger budgets often struggle to get the feeling right, and I think they nailed it here. I was genuinely on edge a few times, slowly creeping around corners, with nothing but my footsteps and these background synths groaning like they were coming out of the walls. Jack will occasionally make comments or say what he needs to do next, and while he sort of sounds like he's going to the bathroom, I didn't mind it all that much. It was nice to get something other than a stock standard voice. And maybe because he sounds sort of like an Australian me.
I want to be on the other side of that gate.
Another pleasant surprise is how well the game runs. Performance was solid for the most part, and I didn't run into any of the goofy visual glitches I was totally expecting. Except for one. This is a very easy platinum trophy for you completionists. Except for 2, all trophies are story related, so you can't miss them. You'll need to start a New Game Plus run to fully upgrade Jack's skills and acquire all recipes. But since you can do everything in around 3 hours, it's a very small hill to climb. And clearly it doesn't overstay its welcome. Okay, so is Darker Skies a hidden gem that revolutionizes survival horror? No, but it's also not really trying to do that. This is clearly a passion project from a small team. Like, this is the entirety of the credits level of small. They don't have friends, and they wanted to make a scary single-player game, and I was pleasantly surprised by the whole thing. The atmosphere was fantastic, the crafting system was a lot of fun, and the premise is an interesting, if underexplained one. So, if you're looking for a brief, scary, and fun time to play all by yourself, and don't need a giant budget, you could do a lot worse than Darker Skies. Okay, you've heard my take on Darker Skies, and I'd love to hear yours as well. Also, what's your favorite independent horror game? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. And if you want some more spooky goodness, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.